So, welcome back. In the last session, we learned how to empathize, to observe people, listen deeply, and understand what they truly experience. But collecting observations um, alone is actually not enough. This is what I will say. Now comes the most important step, making sense of all that information. And that is what exactly, uh, what define stage is about. So here we convert everything we discovered during empathy into one clear human centered problem statement. And this problem statement becomes the foundation for every idea, prototype, and test that follows. Now, if this foundation is weak, even brilliant ideas will solve the wrong problem. So, in this 60-minute session, we will learn two globally used design thinking frameworks. The first one is the point of view or POV statement developed by Stanford d.school, which helps us clearly uh, define the user's problem. The second one is how might we or HMW questions popularized by IDEO, which transformed that problem into opportunities for innovation. So by the end of the session, your output will be one strong point of view statement and five how might we questions. So these won't be your solutions, they will become your design brief and the starting point for generating ideas in our next session on ideation. Right. So let's begin with an important question. Why do some products fail despite having excellent technology and great execution? Because they solve the wrong problem. And that's why the define stage is so important. A quote widely attributed to Albert Einstein says, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes understanding the problem and 5 minutes solving it. Whether or not he said these exact words, the lesson is timeless. Understand the problem before designing the solution. Take these three examples. In a hospital, the team thought the problem was a complicated admission form. The real issue was that patients in distress couldn't process information. They redesigned the experience, not the form, and errors dropped. A school planned a better homework reminder app, but interviews revealed that many students avoided checking homework because they feared disappointing their parents. More reminders would only increase that anxiety. So the team changed direction before building the app. And with Swiggy, customers weren't mainly unhappy about waiting 45 minutes. They felt anxious because they didn't know what was happening after placing the order. Live order tracking solved that uncertainty. So the lesson here is simple. Don't rush to improve a solution. First, make sure you're solving the right problem. And that's what great innovators do. Now that we have identified the importance of solving the right problem, the next question is how do we write that problem clearly? And that's where the point of view or POV statement comes in. As I mentioned earlier, developed by the Stanford D school. This point of view, statement acts as your design brief. Every idea you generate later should be connected back to this one statement. So a POV statement has just three parts: user, need, and Vikas. Okay, that's the insight part. So let's talk about the user first. Never write students or customers. Think of one real person. For example, instead of saying working mothers, say Priya, a 38-year-old working mother who reaches home at 7:30 p.m. after a long commute. Now, the more specific you are, the better. Second, that is the need. Describe what the person needs to do, feel, or achieve, not the solution. Saying needs are a meal, planning app, something like that, is already jumping to a solution. Instead, you can say needs to prepare a healthy dinner without feeling mentally exhausted. And finally is the because, that is the insight part. This is the insight, the surprising, human truth you discovered during your interviews. It's not enough to say because she tired. Okay, go deeper. Maybe she was exhausted, but what really stops her is the guilt of not being able to cook for her family. That's an insight. So companies like Airbnb became successful not because they asked, how do we build a booking website? They understood a deeper human insight that many travelers wanted to feel like they belonged, not just have a place to sleep. Yeah, that deeper understanding changed their entire product and brand. So remember, great design doesn't start with features, it starts with understanding one human being deeply. Now, it's your turn. So don't stop at your first idea. I want you to write three different point of view statements based on the empathy interview you conducted earlier. And you may ask why three? Because the first draft is usually based on assumptions, the second starts digging deeper, and the third often reveals the real human insight. And that's where the magic happens. Keep the same user, but experiment with different because statements. Ask yourself, what did I discover that genuinely surprised me during the interview? For example, if your user is a college student, your first draft might say, Aryan needs help with studies because engineering is difficult. It's obvious. A better version could be Aryan needs permission to ask questions because he's afraid people will think he doesn't belong in engineering. So notice how the second statement uncovers an emotional barrier, not just an academic one. That's exactly the kind of insight we are looking for. So take the 10 minutes, write three drafts, and then choose the one with the most surprising insight. That's the point of view, statement you will use throughout the rest of the design thinking process. So you can pause the video here, take out 10 minutes, do it, and you can come back again. Perfect. Now that you have defined the problem, it's time to turn it into an opportunity. And this is where how might we or HMW comes in. The method was developed by IDEO and is used in design thinking workshops and even Google design sprints. The three words are carefully chosen. How means the problem is solvable. Might reminds us there isn't just one correct answer. And we tells us innovation is a team sport. The best ideas rarely come from one person working alone. Now, not every HMW person is a good one. If you ask, how might we make the checkout page load faster? You've already assumed that speed is the solution. If you ask, how might we improve shopping? It's so broad that almost any idea fits. A better question is, how might we help customers feel confident while making an online payment? That leaves room for dozens of solutions, better design, trust badges, um, payment options, customer support, or something completely new. Think about Google Pay. Building trust wasn't only about making payments faster. Features like transaction confirmation, bank verification, and instant receipts helped users feel confident. That's what a well framed HMW question does. It opens up possibilities instead of locking you into one solution. So, a great HMW question inspires creativity without prescribing the answer. Now it's your turn again. Take your best point of view statement and use it to generate five different how might we questions. Don't stop at the first idea. The goal is to explore different directions. And here is a useful tip. Your first HMW is usually the most obvious. By the fourth or fifth one, you will often discover ideas you hadn't even considered. And that's why we ask you to write five, not one. So let's say your insight is students hesitate to ask questions because they're afraid of being judged. Now look at how many different HMW questions can come from the same insight. How might we make asking questions feel safe? How might we reward curiosity instead of only correct answers? How might we allow students to ask anonymously? How might we allow students, or how might we, help teachers identify silent learners? The last could be how might we build classroom cultures where mistakes can be celebrated. Okay, so notice that every question opens a completely different innovation path. A great real world example is Netflix. They could have asked, how might we improve DVD rentals? Instead, they effectively reframed the challenge toward making entertainment easier and more accessible. That shift eventually led them from DVD by mail to streaming and later to original content. So, write your five HMW questions, then circle the one that excites you the most and offers the widest range of possible solutions. That's the question you will take into the next session, that is ideation. By now, you have written your point of view statement and your five how might we questions. But before moving ahead, let's make them even stronger using AI. Notice something really important. The slide doesn't ask ChatGPT to create your problem statement. It actually asks ChatGPT to critique it. And that's a big difference. So simply paste your point of view and your five HMW questions into ChatGPT using the prompt provided. Okay. Ask it questions like, is my user specific enough? Is my need free from any solution? Is my insight truly inspiring? Which of my five HMW questions opens the biggest opportunity for innovation? You can also ask it to generate a few more HMW questions that explore completely different reactions. Okay. And those can also lead to different directions as well. But remember one golden rule. AI didn't interview your user. You actually did. So AI can improve your wording, identify blind spots, and suggest fresh perspectives. But only you know what your user actually said, felt, and experienced. Accept suggestions that match your empathy findings and reject anything generic. So think of ChatGPT as a design coach, not the designer itself. You design, you define the problem. AI simply, helps you define the better. So now we are at the summary, and let's quickly recap. So first is we learned that solving the wrong problem beautifully is still a failure. Before jumping into ideas, we must spend time understanding the real human problem. And that's why problem framing is at the heart of design thinking. Second one is we converted our empathy findings into a point of view statement. And remember, it's three building blocks: user, need, and because the insights part. A specific user, a human need, not a solution, and a surprising insight that came directly from your interview. The third one is we transformed that insight into HMW questions. A good HMW question doesn't lock you into one answer. It, in fact, opens the door to many possible outcomes or solutions. So that's exactly where creativity starts. And finally, we saw how AI can sharpen our thinking because, uh, uh, you know, it's very important to understand that AI will not replace your thinking process. That's very important. So AI can critique your problem statement, but the empathy, the observations, and the insight must always come from real people. So remember this: the quality of your ideas tomorrow depends on the quality of the problem you define today. A strong defined stage makes every stage that follows easier. Congratulations. You have completed the defined stage of the design thinking process. By now, you should have one clear point of view statement and five how might we questions. Together, these form your problem statement, or what designers often call the design brief. And this is what you will carry into the next stage that follows. But remember, ideas are only as good as the problems they solve. If your problem statement is clear, your ideas become focused. If your problem statement is weak, even brilliant ideas can miss the mark. So, in our next session, we will move into one of the most exciting parts of design thinking, and that's ideation. You will learn techniques used by some of the world's most innovative organizations, including Google Ventures, Crazy Eights, Writing, which is an AI-assisted, idea generation, and practical methods to select the best ideas from many possibilities. So keep your point of view statement and the chosen HMW question ready. They will become the starting point for generating innovative solutions. I'll see you in the session 3, which is ideate, and let's start creating ideas that truly matter. Thank you.